Welcome to Legal Tech Live. This is the podcast covering the people, products, and platforms transforming the legal industry. I'm your host, Nick Rishwain, founder of Legal Tech Live.
And I'm Hannah Zumow, our in-house marketing expert. Every week, we'll bring you unfiltered conversations with the founders, builders, and innovators in the legal technology sector.
This is the show for those interested in growing their businesses and improving the legal world.
And the founders and operators looking to learn from others.
So if that sounds like you, join us and stay tuned for the following episode. Welcome back to Legal Tech Live. Today we're speaking with Dory Lord and Ian O'Brien of CounselPro, CounselPro.ai. We have Ian O'Brien, who is a co-founder and CEO, and Dory Lord, who is a co-founder and CRO. Ian and Dory, welcome. This makes it our first four-person interview since we brought the show back, so we're really happy to have you guys here today.
Wonderful. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Nick. We're glad to be here.
Glad to have you. They came highly recommended from Mike Whalen, for anybody who listens to the show who likes, or for that matter, dislikes Mike Whalen.
Mike Whalen, I think.
The great Mike Whalen. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. Let's start with a little bit about each of your backgrounds, and I'll start with Dory, and then I'll go to Ian because that's the setup here on my screen. Dory, tell us a little bit of your background before CounselPro.
Yeah, great. So I have been historically more on kind of the operations side of things. I did a lot of time in marketing operations, working for different cybersecurity companies, backup continuity, and disaster recovery, as well as places like AWS and JumpCloud. And then I made my way over to Law Insider a few years ago. And for those who don't know Law Insider, it is one of the largest clause and contract library databases. And I got into the legal tech space through Law Insider. And I've actually still been working with both Law Insider and SimpleDocs, the sister company, at this time. And so that is a little bit of my background, but how we got into this legal tech space. It explains the connection to Mike Whalen, of course,
Right.
And just where things got started from the legal side for me.
All right. Excellent. And how about Ian, about you and your background?
Yeah, so I've always been a tinkerer. I'm a self-taught coder, and I realized that really wasn't the career for me, being a full-time engineer. And for most of my career, I've been a marketer, and I've been working for tech companies. And so because I do have that engineering knowledge, it's helped to be able to inform being able to market to a technical audience. So my background's in marketing, mostly in tech. Before this, I was in infrastructure for AI. Before that, I was in cybersecurity. And then what led me to doing CounselPro is I went through a divorce and had to do all of this by hand. And that's when the light bulb went off and I said, there's got to be a better way.
Good. Hannah will love that you are the marketing professional, as she is our in-house marketing expert. And with that, Hannah, I'll let you run next.
How did the two of you come together to start CounselPro? Ian, we can start with you this time.
Yeah, sure. Dory and I have been doing a bunch of work together. We're actually a couple. And it's a family business. We worked together before this, but we like to say that it's a family business. So we knew how one another worked. And as I was going through my own divorce, my ex-wife and I had been separated for many years, actually, as one of those situations. So Dory and I were together during this. And when I was talking about it's just the headache of going through all the spreadsheets. So in divorce, it's a few years of financial statements, which they all add up. And you kind of have to go line by line through everything because it's printed out documents and it's a lot of manual work. And we were out one evening with a friend and I said, I think I have this idea of how we can make forensic financials easier. And then everyone said, hey, I think that's probably a great idea. And Dory, being in legal tech, said, it's definitely a great idea because legal tech is an awesome space to be in. And it really went from there.
Excellent. Dory, anything to add to that?
I don't know that there's a whole lot more to add to that story, but yeah, it's been really interesting working in such close proximity with someone all the time because you have normal working relationships with people and you see them 8 hours a day a lot of the time. but we get to see each other basically 24 hours a day, which is great. But it's really interesting because it helps you to a lot of times move a lot more quickly and get alignment on things a lot more quickly. Certainly it can go the opposite direction, but a lot of times, for the most part, it helps us move more quickly and helps us to make decisions really fast and be agile.
I think this is our second Love and Legal Tech episode, right?
Yeah, I think it is actually.
So
We love to
we
hear
do,
that.
yeah.
Those are awesome
For
stories
you
as
guys,
well.
the episode with Chris Ford talks about he and Nikki Shaver building Legal Tech Hub together.
Right.
So you saw the problem pretty up close and personal in your experience. Is that the only reason why financial forensics specifically? Was it solely to solve the problem that you had, or was there other background? And I guess I'll start with Ian on this one because you kind of led into this. Was it specifically from your divorce case? Was there other information telling you that this would be an ideal setup?
Great question. It definitely was the spark. And when I first started researching the problem, I was trying to see if there were any tools out there that would do it. That was where I started. It was beginning with market research. What can do this for me to make my problem easier? Then, of course, at the time, LLMs were just starting to become all the rage. And I figured, all right, let me see if I could have ChatGPT do this for me. And even still to this day, ChatGPT really just falls flat on its face trying to do this type of analysis. So that's when really that light bulb went off. And I said, okay, if there's not really a solution out there that does this, and if you look at how many family law attorneys there are in the US, there's a market for something like this just for family law, which was where my immediate thinking landed us. But then, of course, you start to think more deeply about it of what is the real need of doing this type of analysis. Certainly, there's a bunch you can do with AI and Python these days and to help you build that analysis. But there's not really a solution out there that takes it end to end from unstructured data to structured data to analysis so quickly, so easily, that allows you to focus on the story first rather than on the data ingestion. So it was an idea that it evolved over time. I think I started very small to say, all right, is there a problem we can solve here? And then it just turns out there's a big need for it in bankruptcy, in criminal law. We actually have one right now in Texas that's a civil rights case that's using us. So you'd be surprised how many really involve financial document analysis.
I have to ask, not that I need you to note all of them, but when you started looking for tools that did it, did you find anything that did something like it or some version of what you needed, but not the way you wanted it done?
Yeah, I do actually, and I'm gonna call them out by name, Nick, because it really, people always ask me if there are competitors, and what I say is, and mostly what they do today is the extraction. And so what that is taking those bank statements, looking at the account numbers, the dates, the amounts, the description, and turning that into structured data in some way. There are some out there. The biggest one today that does this is a company called DocuClipper. And one of the things that our customers always tell us is, sure, they kind of get there. Our processor, frankly, is better and faster. But what people tell us is, sure, they do the extraction, but the analysis part is really the thing that's most interesting. And there's nobody out there that does end-to-end today. There are some players, even in the enterprise space, who do this for a much more expensive price tag and are that enterprise grade product. But there are really none out there today that do what we do from end to end. So it can be a complete platform for an attorney, for a forensic investigator to use.
I'm glad that you brought up the competitor or who's out there in the market already. I think startups don't do it often enough. They like to kind of not mention any. It's good to know what's out there and what it does and how you differentiate. So I'm glad you did.
So with your two different backgrounds from like the operations side and the marketing side, how do your two different roles complement each other? Dory, if you don't mind leading us off with that one.
So Ian does really all of the development and the product engineering with a team supporting him as well. But he has been the driver of the evolution of the product and everything that we've been able to build. It's been pretty incredible watching the speed of the growth. And then on the other side, I am more involved in the sales. We handle a lot of the marketing jointly to some degree, but handling a lot of outward facing customer communication. We are relatively self-serve, but that also means that you come with support questions and you come in with it's the day-to-day running of a business and the really fun stuff like tax filing and all of that, right? Just the realities of having a business. So that's a lot of where the lines of division are drawn. But as I said, we do a lot of collaborative work on things. So there's a lot of talking about how we want things to appear or how certain things should function within the platform and making sure that we're not going down too many rabbit holes because we get a lot of really great feedback from our customers and we want to implement as much as possible. But we've really been pretty specific in focusing on one or two small niches to start so that we don't go down we don't chase down like every single recommendation or request from people simply because we would drive ourselves crazy and it wouldn't necessarily be to benefit everyone. So we've really focused on family law and bankruptcy primarily to say, how do we make the platform as strong as we can for these users and make it as much ingrained into their daily workflow as it possibly can be. I think, and I'm going to jump back to Nick's question before really quickly here as well. Sorry to
Okay.
go on a tangent. But one of the other things that we notice in the market is that a lot of the tools that are out there are for the bigger players. So you've got the Harveys, the Lagoras, and I know that these are more on the transactional side. And so they may not be, an apples to apples comparison. But there aren't really as many vendors in this space who are specifically reaching out to smalls and solos and designing for those audiences because that's it's a gap, right? So I think one of the things that you've had come up a good amount is access to justice. And so we also wanted to essentially be able to provide this same level of capability that people would have paid thousands and thousands of dollars for a forensic analyst. We wanted to be able to provide that for every single case. And how are you able to do that without doing some AI use and some scaling of the processes? And so I think that is one of the things that we really thought about when we saw this opportunity with how do we also target a very specific market. And so that's what we've been doing is keeping our focus on those markets so that we don't dilute our message.
Yeah, that's lawyers love. Every lawyer wants to customize it to their workflow with software. It's been a problem for legal tech startups for a long time. Not that they're not good ideas, but once if you continue to customize and the feature creep comes in, pretty soon you have something that doesn't work all that well, right? That's what happens. Keeping it as close to off the shelf as you can, I think, is ideal. So with that, let me transition into give us, no need to show the UI, but give us in plain English. I know you've touched on it a little, Ian, but give us a little bit in plain English how CounselPro works. How do you ingest the data, trace it, prove it? What does the output kind of look like?
Great. I'm glad you asked. One of the things I like to tell people is the interface is so easy, even a lawyer can use it.
That's good.
And so the marketing really that we've settled on, and you'll see it all over our website, is drag, drop, done. We want to make the boring part of this job super easy for you so that you can come to rely on us when you need the information, you get it quickly and you get it accurately. So what the process looks like today for a lawyer using it is so simple. They start a project. We call them projects because we try and keep the nomenclature fairly generic. But a lawyer obviously would call it a case or a matter. We allow them to name it whatever they want. You can create as many projects as you want. We say upload documents. You take your whole folder of, let's call it 8,000 pages of bank accounts, credit card accounts, check images, all spread throughout. You don't know if you have everything that you need. All you do is you click in and drag it in there. You hit process. What the system does is it organizes it all for you by statement range. It tells you whether or not any statement ranges are missing. It looks through and sees what types of accounts there are. So if it's a multi-account statement, like a combined checking and savings account, it'll tell you how much is in the checking account versus a savings account. It'll tell you who owns that account. If it's a credit union where the credit union has a share member or a share number, or a share ID, it pulls all of that data out for you. So you know exactly what money went into the account, what money went out of the account, and we categorize all of that for you. So if you see, go ahead.
If I were using it personally, would I need to download all the PDFs from my statements for whatever the timeline is, and then I dump those PDFs in, right?
Correct.
I
Yeah.
drag those in. Okay. All right.
Yeah. You just drag the PDFs in and it categorizes it all for you. And if you spend money at McDonald's, it'll say the parent category is food and drink. The category detail is fast food. So if you want to see how many times somebody went to McDonald's, all you do is type into the unified search McDonald's. You see what months they spent money on that McDonald's, how much they did. You filter it by dates, and you can start really digging into the pattern of somebody's life.
That's fascinating. And then you could, I think experts, my day job's at experts.com, and I think experts would find this actually helpful as well, especially the forensic accountants. Anything you can do to make your life easier in the lead up to the analysis that you have to do, that the preliminary or preparation stage of now I have to review this for this data. But if you have that in more easily attainable data, structured data, then it makes life easier.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we do work with forensic investigators. We have a lot of CFEs. We also work with a lot of bankruptcy trustees, U.S. bankruptcy trustees, who need access to that data quickly and to be able to, what we like to say is, we don't find the needle in the haystack. We tell you the story of how the needle got there and why, so that you can start to build your story around it.
Excellent.
I'm going to go back to something Dory said a little bit ago. You said that you were on the sales side. So who would be CounselPro's ideal customers? Who are you talking to most often?
Yeah, we are talking to a lot of the small to mid-sized firms, primarily those that are focused on either family law or bankruptcy, but we do have a lot of estate planning, probate, even Medicare. We've talked to immigration firms, because really anywhere that there might be some kind of evaluation of financials is a place where we fit in. And you've got a lot of look back periods for Medicare. You've got look back periods in bankruptcy. You've got what's essentially a look back period in family law. And so all of these are.
Dory, will you explain?
Sure.
It sounds like we can figure out what a look back period is, but just for the audience, could you go into that a little deeper?
Absolutely. In bankruptcy, for example, there are periods of time before you filed for bankruptcy where if you have made certain payments out, I believe the number is over $600, that then becomes a preferential payment that essentially could be clawed back in some way during the course of the bankruptcy. And so similar things also are going to apply for Medicare and Medicaid. There's a 5-year look back. And so all of these timeframes, when you think about these timeframes, now the burden or the onus is on the attorney to actually do the evaluation of that time frame, that time period. And so they need to make sure that there isn't some kind of skeleton hanging out in their client's closet, any kind of payments, or in family law, for example, any kind of dissolution of funds and changes in spending habits that may have occurred right after the divorce period or notice for divorce. And so all of these time frames are really important, but they're not always easy to look back at the exact statements and the exact data. And I think that there would probably be a few lawyers out there who would say that not every bit of discovery that you receive is going to be complete. And you may or may not know that, right? So you need some way to very quickly verify that yes, they've handed you all 700 pages and they didn't hold back page 701 that had the smoking gun on it. So that involves things like reconciliation of funds and understanding, did we actually get every single transaction? Has anything been manipulated or changed here? Do these things not add up? Do they not work? And so all of these are different things that lawyers are typically doing. And so why spend the time creating the structured data set, getting that structured data set in place when your time is much more valuable and much better spent doing that strategy work?
So to bring that full circle, then the ideal, rather than ideal customer, ideal user here are you seeing You've talked about bankruptcy and you've talked about family law. Were there clustering around those use cases that there was just a high demand for this and that's currently the ideal customer?
Yeah,
Okay.
because there's an identification that the firms have identified that they have a problem.
Mhm.
They're a captive audience and they're looking for solutions. There aren't really a lot of
That's a
other
big
vendors out
step.
there in the space. Yeah.
That's a big step up because that does part of the selling for you. We know we have a problem here already. I
Yep.
like that. Okay, in that same vein, how does the pricing model work and how did you settle on your pricing model? And I was going to ask Dory this. Are you the right one to ask?
Yeah, I'll take it
Okay.
for now. So it's actually something that we are in the process of doing a little bit of reworking on, but I'm not going to
You
spill on
did.
all of that.
Yep.
But we've done a lot of kind of thinking about how do lawyers want to buy things, and one of our favorite points of contention is around token type pricing versus something that's a little bit more for a lawyer to understand. And so we've actually tried to stick with pages processed because it does give a little bit more clarity than something that can be more obscure, like how many tokens am I using for this task. It's something that I think we might see some changes over time, but really that's one way that we've structured our pricing. Right now, our plans are basic, pro, advanced, and they're primarily based on the number of pages that people are processing within a month. And we also have an AI add-on, which is doing things like an AI chat and AI forensic report. But essentially, you can use the chat to ask any kind of question about the data that you might have wanted to look for the answer on your own. Ask the chat. Don't go looking for it on your own, right? Because it's going to do that evaluation for you.
A quick follow-up on that, and I'm not sure this may be an Ian or a Dory question. Does the price per page, does that get you to a more predictable income for dealing with the token issue yourselves on your end? Is it more predictable if we know how much they're paying per page? We also know how many, or we get a better idea of how many tokens they'll go through. Because I know the token usage is a hard thing for startups to face. We've even seen with the major players like Claude that they've been asking, or at least companies who are using Claude have been asking them to maybe slow down on their AI usage because the token fees are really starting to hurt. So from somebody who's in the startup field, this is a long way around this question, does the pricing per page help you have more predictable idea of how many tokens you're using?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So
Okay.
when you are doing the type of processing we're doing, one of our competitors, like the more enterprisey one, and I'll name it since I got praised for the last one, I'll name this one too.
If I knew you worked that way, I would just keep praising
There
through
we
the whole
go.
interview.
Let me hear it, Nick. One of our competitors is a more enterprise solution, was called Validate.
Okay.
It's an 8 at the end, so Validate.
Okay.
Their pricing is based around number of transactions. And so they've figured that their compute is better when it's looked at the actual individual transaction, which kind of makes sense because a page may have 10 transactions on it, it may have 60 transactions on it. And so we actually have to think in terms of, sure, what is the individual transaction? That would be the most accurate. But asking, and when we're able to steal customers from Validate, part of the reason why is because they say to us, I don't know how many transactions there are. I know how many pages there are, but I don't know how many transactions there are. And I won't know until after I processed all the pages. So it's impossible for me to actually figure out what this particular client is going to cost me and whether or not I can pass that bill along to them. So for us, it's much easier.
So there's a transparency issue there too for users.
Yeah, or
transparent pricing issue.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think necessarily intentionally, but when you're asked to put that cognitive load onto somebody who's already super busy, and now they're asked to evaluate what is the average transaction count for the customer who I've gotten a banker's box full of printouts because they want to be a jerk to me during discovery. So part of what we do is we try and take that away, that thinking, that cognitive load off of what the lawyer has to do and say, look, at our most expensive today, it's 20 cents per page. And so we frame that to them where we say it's the same cost that you would actually have to pay to go to FedEx to print it out. We will do the extraction and analysis for you. And so once you frame it that way, it's such an easy decision for them to say, oh yeah, this makes complete sense because I was going to spend that money anyway.
Yep. Very good.
On the go-to market side of things, how are you marketing across the verticals that we've talked about, the family law, bankruptcy? So yeah, what's working, what's not working in regards to in your marketing strategy?
Yeah, great question. So it's for us, we've actually done primarily organic, just growth within the website, a lot of blogging, a lot of name dropping, making sure that the site is really well structured, compliments of Ian. And so we will very quickly appear as top searches when anybody is searching for things like alternatives to ChatGPT for forensic processing or for financial statement evaluation or really any of those. We've also been riding on the coattails of our competitors. So thank you guys. With the SEO and GEO and AEO and all of the different optimizations that you can do these days, we do not do any kind of paid search or really any big advertising. We've done a few events as well. So getting out there in the physical space is really important to us. Connecting with our primary audience face to face is one of the best ways for us to just build those relationships. One of the things that we've heard from even some people is just, oh, all you have to do is get out there a little bit more, get your name known a little bit more. And we're doing that, but we have really benefited from a lot of organic growth. And so we want to continue to do that and grow at a steady, healthy, predictable pace.
Like that. Within that, let me ask this because it's a relevant follow-up, Dory. You talked about search phrases that you guys got great SEO. What would I search for? I don't have this problem, right? Because I'm not doing this. What would be a normal search to get to result in CounselPro AI? I don't want you to give away proprietary information really, but how does somebody search for your kind of software?
So a lot of times they're doing it one of two ways. They're already in some tool like ChatGPT or Claude, and they're asking the question and they're saying like, how do I do this? I've figured out that you can't take in my 500 different PDFs of bank statements and understand these for me. So what is my other option? And so they've already started with the problem of, I have a lot of statements and I need help organizing them. Or if they're searching on Google or otherwise, a lot of times they're looking for alternatives to one of our bigger competitors. And
Gotcha.
so they're aware of the problem, they're familiar with the space. And then there are some people who are just searching for, how do I analyze credit card statements or bank statements? But a lot of people are looking for the alternatives as well, which is something that we've found very interesting.
I think that's what I was looking for is like, all right, how would I search that? How do I organize bank statements? That was what I was playing with in my head, because I was like, there's just for tax time going through bank statements and looking at things, it can be a pain in the butt. So I was thinking this could be a way that I could simplify things that I'm doing. So interesting. What's the vision we'll go back over to Ian for this. What's the vision for the platform beyond where you are today?
Great question. I think that we started with, if I can say this, we started with the difficult problem first. One of the reasons that there's not a whole lot of competitors out there is because the engineering problem for this is really difficult. There's over 10,000 different banking institutions in the United States alone. And if you factor in different types of credit cards, all those different credit unions, how many times those statement formats change, being able to predictably and accurately extract all of that is not as easy as pointing this at Claude and saying, extract these transactions for me, make no mistakes. And so we started with a really difficult problem, which is how we could take where we need the accuracy to be very high, where we would need to ingest a whole lot of data really quickly and be able to make it searchable and sortable. So where it makes sense for us to go after this, and don't hold me to this at any point in time, disclaimer, But probably where we would want to go would be into something like personal injury, because working with words and text is something that LLMs do really well. They don't work well with math because they're large language models. And so we've had to do a lot of engineering around that in order to make sure that our numbers are extremely accurate. So for us to then go to more natively what an LLM is really good at, which is language understanding, language parsing language, it's a natural next evolution to be able to summarize medical forms and be able to ingest medical billing. So you're able to have that same type of quality of analysis in a different area. It would require us to bring on board somebody who has that expertise, but I think that would be a next evolution for us if we wanted to expand in a different market. That one, and I think we could do a great job of providing an awesome service like we do for the financial documents and price it aggressively enough that it would become super interesting to so many PI firms.
I can tell you from working with medical billing experts that it is so insane what just your day-to-day doctor's office has to do for their billing to make sure that they get paid, whether it's Medicare or Medi-Cal or any of those, and the complexity when it comes to an actual case where you need a medical billing expert, it is really something else. And if there's a way to simply to make what we would call medical billing review easier and more efficient, I think everybody be game for that.
Defensibility output is part of your whole pitch, but how do you keep outputs court ready as CounselPro scales? And I'm not sure who should answer this question. So if anyone wants to jump in there, that'd be great.
Well, just a clarification of what do you mean as we scale? Does that mean in terms of the types or the number of attorneys we sign on, or the types of cases we support, or both?
Both. Just as you grow, how do you keep that? I guess it's more tokens is part of it, but you're really talking about our information that we're providing, that we're making easier is always defensible. That is a big part of what you're selling. So how do you maintain the integrity of the output as you get more verticals, as you get more users, how does that happen?
So right now we have a system that we're releasing to more customers. It's not released to everybody yet, but it's a reconciliation module. So what it will do is we'll look at the starting balance, the ending balance, and it will reconcile all the transactions. And if you're able to count the number of transactions, if that matches what's on the statement, and if the math works out, then we can say with a relatively high level of certainty that this is accurate. So that's one way that we say, okay, it's been fully reconciled. Here's the math behind every single statement range. The other thing that we do is we have source citing, but on steroids. So anytime you see a transaction on our transaction table, it tells you exactly which PDF it came from, what account that came from, and the page that it came from. And all you have to do is click that link and it will pull you to that individual page. So if it's page 355 of a 1,000-page document, you just click it, it brings it right there. You see that line right there in order to be able to review it. And so we say, sure, it's going to be accurate. It has to have that page link, that page anchor that's linked to it. And then there's a supervisor model that checks it and everything to make sure that it wasn't hallucinated. But we always say, obviously, you have to review it as the attorney, but we give you the tools to be able to find and correct those issues as quickly and easily as possible. And because it is a computer, obviously it will make mistakes, but humans make mistakes too. And the accuracy that we see is actually higher than a human going through and cataloging all of this themselves.
That's a good answer for that. How do you, let's say, so we usually ask this of startups. You guys are early. It seems like you're bootstrapped. Are you thinking about taking on fundraising? Are you thinking about venture? Or are you thinking things are going pretty good and we can continue this at the way we're doing it right now without having to sell any piece of our company? Dory, it looks like you have taken your mic off of mute to answer this.
Yes, because it's one of my favorite things for us to talk about. So we have both been victims of private equity and VC funding in other lives, in other companies.
Yep.
And we, at least at this point, have made some really conscious decisions to grow the business at a rate that's sustainable and healthy and predictable, and not go down the road of funding, because we want to continue. We've seen enough success that we feel confident and comfortable with saying, yep, this is the right path for us right now. But what it also does is it really, like I said at the outset, it enables us to move so much more quickly. It doesn't, but we're not moving quickly on someone else's priorities. We're not constantly pivoting when we're a little bit shy of the mark that maybe was set for us. And we are able to really take the time to say, how do we do this? How do we do this right? How do we do this in a way that's sustainable? We want to grow a company that we want to work for. We don't want to grow a company that we don't want to work for. And we've seen both sides of that coin in our professional lives overall. And right now, the decision for us is that it makes more sense for us to stay where we are, continuing on doing what we're doing, even if we've gotten some really wonderful feedback from some VC firms, which is, you just need more eyeballs on you guys. That we've had some meetings with people, and within the first 5 minutes, we were like, the insights were, you should raise your prices, and we just need to get more eyeballs on you guys. And it's okay, great. That does not really make a business that we want to be part of. And so that is the direction that we want to take the business at this point.
Excellent. Ian, did you want to contribute to that, or did she sum it up pretty well?
No, she summed it up certainly better than I could. I would say one of the reasons why also we've decided to do this bootstrapped and keep it going for as long as we can and grow this way is because if we did want to have that VC discussion, we have a much stronger negotiating standpoint. So I would say it's not that we are against, there are some wonderful VCs out there who are great partners to work with. I've worked with several of them in some other companies who really are just reuse the word again, just extraordinary partners. But I think we would want to be in a position where we could dictate some of those terms as opposed to needing that and relying on that VC money in order to get where we want to go. We have a vision that we want to achieve. And if we find the right partner along the way who wants to support us in that vision, we're all for it.
So we typically ask all of our guests this question at this point in the interview. Who do you recommend that Nick and I interview as a guest on Legal Tech Live?
You can't say Mike Whalen.
Sorry, Mike. I tried. We were at ABA Tech Show in Startup Alley in March, and really great experience. It was super cool. Thank you to Bob Ambrosi and the whole crew. But we were in a booth right next to a company called Twin Counsel. And I think that they have a really cool platform. Josh, and I'm spacing on his co-founder's name right now, but Josh Dorward, I know that. I think he would be a great guest if you guys don't know him already. He was in a previous YC company, and he's created Twin Counsel. I think he's a CA bar lawyer, and he's got a lot of the understanding of what lawyers need. And basically his platform is be a twin. This is your function where you're functioning today in email. I'm all this advertising.
I like this second brain kind of idea. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
And their target market's also like ours, where they really want to target those solos and smalls that really need the help, but they don't want to pay, or they can't afford to pay those more enterprisey costs. And so They have a similar vision that we do about who we want to support.
Awesome. We don't want to keep you guys all day. Tell people where we find you. You guys have to now fight over who will say where we find you.
Okay, you're going to find us at CounselPro.ai. We also will be, if anybody is attending, we're going to be at NALACON in July, which is the National Association of Paralegals. They're going to be in Denver, Colorado. We're going to be at the National Association of Bankruptcy Trustees in August in Boston. So we are going out on the road for a few different shows. We're going to be also getting a few others on the calendar. So find us in person at some of those events or at CounselPro.ai.
And LinkedIn for Dory Lord and Ian O'Brien, is that where folks can reach out if they have questions?
Absolutely. I have a relatively unique name. I will probably be the only one you'll find.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. With that, thank you to Ian O'Brien and Dory Lord of CounselPro.ai. Really exciting work that's being done in the financial forensic space. We look forward to having everyone back next week for our next episode. Stay tuned.
Thanks, Nick and Hannah.
Thanks, Nick
Thank
and Hannah.
you.